Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Havre Card Cast. Today I am the Havre Card Man, and today's podcast is sponsored by yours truly because I do not currently have a sponsor. If anyone wants to sponsor me, please feel free to hit me up. I'm totally down. But anyways, I'm going to pay some bills here. Well, not pay some bills. I'm just going to advertise myself a little bit before we get into this. So if you guys haven't checked out my channel yet, definitely go do so. I mean, you're most likely watching this on YouTube, or there's a chance you're listening to it on Podbean or somewhere else. But go check it out. The Havre Card Man on YouTube. I also have a Facebook and Twitter. The Facebook's not really active. Same thing with my Instagram. I do have an Instagram as well. But the Twitter's where I'm really active. I'm hanging out there all the time, chatting with a lot of people. You can also find me on the Coalition of Scrubs public Discord. Get a little ahead of myself there, but yeah, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Go follow me there. Follow me on, or subscribe to me on YouTube. I'm posting out new videos every week on my channel, as well as the Coalition of Scrubs and Team Chaos stream. If you've never heard of the Coalition of Scrubs, it's another Yu-Gi-Oh channel that I'm a part of, where me and several other Yu-Gi-Tubers get together to make you guys some awesome Yu-Gi-Oh content. So be sure to go check it all out as well. I'll have links to everything down in the description of the notes, whatever you got down there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's Havre Card Cast about the ban list that theoretically is going to be coming out in September, like next week, theoretically. So, and just overall where I think the game is going to be going in terms of ban list and sets that are coming out before too long, just kind of relatively speaking on things that are yet to come. So obviously, talking about the ban list, everyone's thoughts are pretty much the same. Like, no one really has original thoughts, I think, for the ban list. I haven't watched any actual ban list videos, but I can't imagine that any of their thoughts are like super different from each other. A lot of people are calling for the ban of Block Dragon, I'm sure, or some people are just calling for a limit of it to make it less consistent, which is, whatever. Talking about some hits to Eldritch, like I think either throwing the Gold Lord down to 1 or throwing Sanguine down to 1. Maybe it's both, I can't remember. Obviously people want to hit Dogmatica, but it just came out, so there's no way Konami's going to hit that yet, and I think everyone kind of realizes that. I know there's several people calling for the hit to Invoked, like that entire Invoked engine, which is fine. I mean, it's reasonable to want to hit something like that, especially Magical Meltdown. If nothing else, just limiting it to 1 to make the engine less consistent and make it less degenerate, because Magical Meltdown really does kind of make the whole engine rough. I know there's some other things that aren't they're not huge, but yeah, I was watching MCole40's video yesterday, and he was joking about Konami going after stuff like dinosaurs because Team Sam got first place at that event, and just going after their entire engine. Honestly, though, if we're talking dinos, I still think they're like a tier 2 deck. Like they can definitely compete with tier 1, and they can get up there. Obviously when you're like Team Sam and you've got all that experience behind you and you really know how to play, especially at that deck, yeah, it can be bonkers, and it does have a lot of pieces that make the deck really consistent and really strong. But overall, I don't think it's really like that big of a deal that we need to hit it on the ban list. I mean, it's already been touched before with a few cards, but it's still sitting in a really good spot right now. I think it's honestly a fairly balanced deck in terms of all the other decks in the meta. There are definitely a lot worse options that you could see out there. The 10-minute Animancipator turns comes to mind. Honestly, I'm really sad that Animancipator became like this big combo deck. Like, I know it was originally intended to be a combo deck, but I liked the pure version of it, whereas like more so just pulling out the crystals and going into its natural synchros. I liked that deck. I thought of it more as a rogue style deck, and I really enjoyed the thought of that because it looked like a lot of fun. And then people took this whole combo variant and made it a tier 1 deck, and I'm just like, well, it doesn't really look like fun to me anymore. And I think that personally that killed the deck for me. But when you're looking at this format, your top decks are Eldritch and Animancipator. Now you're starting to see other decks go up there because of the Numeron engine. You're starting to see stuff like, I mean, not so much the Numeron Subterrors. They're starting to get up there a little bit more. They're closer to the tier 2 range now. Numeron Altergeist, I think, has been making a few waves. Dogmatica has definitely been huge in influencing a lot of decks and in just being another engine to throw into those control style decks. And that's really where we're at in the format right now. We're kind of in a really control heavy stage. There's pretty much all the things that happen are intended to turbo out all these different gates and ways to control your opponent and their plays. Nothing's really intended to be like super interactive anymore. It's just saying, hey, I'm not going to let you play, is kind of the stage we're at from what I feel. I mean, even stuff like True King of All Calamities and the S0 plays, it's all just, hey, I know you want to play the game, but I'm not going to let you so I can win and not let anybody have any fun. And it kind of does take a lot of the interaction out of the format from what I've noticed, and it's made it a lot less intriguing to play. It makes people a lot less likely to want to play, and I've seen several people actually dip out of the game because of the power of S0 with the Numerons. I definitely think that needs to be addressed. S0 is probably another card that needs to be at least looked at and addressed before it becomes way too degenerate. I mean, it's already bad enough where it's at. Just playing the 3 Numeron network and the Numeron wall and terraforming, just having that in the deck is already degenerate enough. And I really think there's a lot that needs to be looked at there. Especially just, I don't know. This format is just crazy right now. Like, it would honestly... The Adamancipator Eldritch format isn't looking so bad now, comparatively speaking, to the Numerons. Yes, there's ways to out the Numeron network and stuff, but I mean, who really wants to go out of their play to be running stuff like the No Material and all these other outs when there's so many other things in the format that don't get even affected by those cards remotely? I mean, yeah, No Material is good against a lot of decks, but it's not anything that's gonna like kill a lot of strategies. It'll just slow them down, be like, all right, well, I can't use this resource, so I'll just use something else, or I'll use this one for something else. And it's, I don't know, it's a really strange thing, and I haven't quite understood it yet. I really don't want to complain about Adamancipator Eldritch anymore, because Numeron has just kind of ruined a lot of what this format had. Because at least the Eldritch and Adamancipator, there were ways to out those boards. There's ways to have at least some fun playing against them. It wasn't like you were forbidden from playing the game. It's not like, sure, they had negates and stuff, but they couldn't just say you literally can't activate cards at all. You actually had to play the cards first for them to negate it. So there was at least kind of a little bit of interaction. And if those boards couldn't set up all their proper disruptions, then there was a chance you could still play through it. But when you get that whole just detach material, skip your turn type things, it's just ridiculous. And I think it definitely is not doing anything good for the format right now. And Konami's definitely probably made their money off of the Numerons at this point, that I think that it's worth at least looking at banning the S0. They can keep the Numerons around, because the Numeron being the 1-card OTK during turn 2 is fine, because there's not really much follow-up after that. Like, yeah, you can go into the Infinitrack Fortress Mega Collapse, but there are ways to out that too. I mean, at that point, then you can just run in Kaijus, and Kaijus are a lot better to run than trying to run the No Material, all these different cards that you hope you draw to be able to out the Utopic Zexal before it gets made, or stop it after it's been played. And sure, there's also Forbidden Droplets now, which does help. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, this game could be heading so many different directions. I have noticed Konami starting to print some more support for the Rogue and Jank style decks, which I'm really, really grateful for. Like Prank Kids getting Prank Kids Meow Meow. I know I bring this up all the time, but I love Prank Kids. Them getting their new support. They're bringing out all these new decks like the Melfies and the Appliances, which aren't groundbreaking by any means. They're just cute little archetypes, but I feel they're a lot more fun to play. They create a lot of interaction, and they kind of take it back to the older style of Yu-Gi-Oh! I think, where it's a more back and forth. Of course, you're still getting all the archetype stuff, and there's still plenty of means to combo, especially if you're talking about Appliances and you're talking to King Scarlet. Yeah, that's right, I'm calling you out, buddy, because I know you're probably listening to this, but I mean, yeah, they're both good decks, don't get me wrong, but they're not like tier 2 or tier 1. They're not going to be competing with the top meta decks. They are purely for the players looking to play for fun, the more casual and rogue style players, which I think is great. I think it's great that Konami is starting to bring out more stuff like that instead of just going for the meta and the collectors. It's definitely good for them to be able to address that kind of middle range too. And I think there's a lot of good things to be said about that, but of course they're also still paying attention to the meta and the collectors markets. So they're kind of aiming more towards that when creating their products, and they're creating a lot of very meta relevant cards that can, in some cases, be format warping. Once again, Forbidden Droplets, Triple Tactic Talents, I don't think really fits in there. It's a good card, but it's not format warping. It's just I don't know. It's one of those things that I can't really go one way or the other on it. I'm really back and forth. I think it's a good one of index, honestly, but I wouldn't really go any higher than that. So And of course, the Dogmatica engine, that entirely being able to splash that into any deck as long as you have like 7 or 8 main deck slots, it's really not that hard to fit in, and it just provides a lot of value that really decks shouldn't be able to get right now. Like, we are in a format of engines, as I've heard MCole40 describe this. This is a format of engines where you're seeing engines of Shadal, you're seeing Eldritch engines, you're seeing Dogmatica engines. You're not really seeing just pure decks anymore. It's just splashing a bunch of engines together until you find something that works. Like, literally just yesterday, I got bored and I started building a deck, and I was going to build a Mech Knight deck, and I'm like, oh, but then I could add in the Invoked engine. So, okay, that's cool. Oh, hey, I've got extra space. I can throw in the Shadal engine. The Shadal Rook and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, well, if I'm doing that and I've got the space, I might as well throw in the Dogmatica engine. So by the end of it, I went from a Mech Knight deck to a Dogmatica Invoked Shadal Mech Knight deck. And it was, it just felt wrong to me now that I'm like looking back at it. I haven't played it yet, and I don't think I really want to anymore, just because I don't know. It feels so weird to me not playing just a normal deck anymore. Like, I did my Fluffle deck profile. I just recorded that yesterday, and it felt so good to have a deck that was just a pure variant of itself, that it was only playing its cards, and it was intended to just go into its own strategy and just play that and have fun. Like, I don't even really do that with Prankins anymore, which is the weird thing. I do have a normal Prankins deck that just runs a ton of hand traps and stuff, and is more like Sky Striker, in just that it has so many disruptions available to it. But I mean, I've been messing around throwing in so many different engines into it. Like, recently I did the Fossil Prankins deck. I'm working on throwing in other stuff too. Like, I've got a whole bunch of different builds to go with it, and I don't know. It doesn't feel the same anymore. There's just some days I want to just sit down and just want to play pure Prankins, because I don't like the whole idea of throwing in like 4 or 5 different engines into a deck and just calling that a deck. I know that feels more like what old school Yu-Gi-Oh used to be, where it's mostly just a bunch of random good cards thrown in together, and you would play against those back in like the Summon Skull meta. When I didn't even really play the game that much, to be honest. I just collected the cards because I really loved them. But yeah, no, it's one of those things. I don't know why it drives me nuts, but it really does. I love seeing the pure decks. I feel like they're a lot more fun. They're a lot more interactive. They're a lot more engaging. They just feel altogether more wholesome and more entertaining. It makes the game a lot more fun and brings more life to it. Seeing like, oh, hey, I like this deck that you got. I love that you're playing the pure variant of it. Like, what cool text do you got for it? Like, because you can still throw in other text without having to throw in whole engines. Like my Prankins, I throw in Thunder Dragon Fusion into every Prankins deck I build, because it works with my Prankins Battle Butler. I do it for no other reason. I don't have a Thunder Dragon engine in there anywhere. I do it because I can summon the Battle Butler with it off of Verte Anaconda, or just using it in my hand, and then the next turn I can banish it to be able to search a Fansies from deck. Like, that's the only reason I play that in my deck. I don't actually throw in a Thunder Dragon engine, and I think that kind of stuff's cool. It forces you to be a little bit more creative with the archetype when you're playing the pure variant, because you're not just throwing in all these different engines that everyone's playing and calling it a day. You're actually having to look for these different cards to fill up the space and to make it more viable. And I feel like that, once again, I feel that makes the game a lot more entertaining. So I kind of got off discussion here. This was supposed to be more of a Banlist discussion than anything, but really there's not much to cover, because it's everywhere right now. Everyone's talking about their Banlist predictions and what they think is going to happen. And yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of them are pretty accurate on what could happen with the Banlist. Honestly, I don't think Konami is actually going to give us a proper Banlist. They might release a couple of things. There's a chance they might hit like 1 or 2 things, but all in all, I really don't feel they're going to have a ban list yet. I honestly think at this point they're just going to hold off on releasing a ban list and just do it whenever we actually start to see events again. I think they're just going to say the format's fine as it is and not worry about touching anything, because it's pretty much all, well, it is all online right now anyways. There's a few locals that have opened back up, but there's no major events going on right now, and I'm sure that's definitely contributing to a lot of things here. And that's why we saw such a sad ban list last time around. I'm sure they were actually going to do something proactively, but since they didn't have any events to pull data from, even though they've got plenty of data online, like they can find all this information just fine and just listen to the community. Since they don't have any of that data to go off of, they're probably not going to release anything, I'd have to imagine. So I don't know. It's really weird. And yeah, so the update is going to be released, or is going to be updated no sooner than September 1st of 2020. I really don't think we're going to see anything right away. I think it's probably going to be a few more months at least until we can actually start getting some events back, because looking at the list, there's not really anything on here I could see coming off reasonably that would make a lot of sense, really. I mean, yeah, there's really not. The best I could hope for is that they put Thunder Dragon Colossus back to 1, but even then, I don't think that's going to be a reasonable thing. I would be terrified if for some reason they decided to release Firewall Dragon or the Topologic Below Dragon, but obviously that's never going to happen. There's so many things on here, like, they're never going to release these again. You look at any of these cards, you're like, no, these are going to stay stuck where they're at. They're not really going to go up any higher. Like, the best I can maybe see, once again, just taking a quick peek at this, I'm not like going hardcore into this, but just taking a quick peek at this, one of the only cards I can see like maybe coming off or getting some releases is like the Danger cards or a couple of the Burning Abyss cards. Like, that's maybe it, and even then I highly doubt any of those are really going to get released anymore. I think they're just going to be sticking where they're at, to be quite honest. So I mean, time will tell. Obviously, Konami's a lot different than I am. They're a business, so they're going to operate and think a lot differently. So they might be, obviously, they're going to act in the interest of business, and they might do that for the sake of product. Because, I mean, they do have the 2020 Megatins coming up, and I think they might have one more set coming out this year. So I really don't know anymore. Konami has become unpredictable to me. You know, once again, I still feel like there's not going to be a ban list right away. But we can definitely hope. We need something to fix up this format a little bit. And we're all kind of praying that Konami actually listens to the community for once instead of just going for the business. Because obviously the business revolves around the community. If you don't take care of that community, you're not really going to have much business left. So I think it definitely would be wise of them at this point to actually listen to the community and hear what we have to say in terms of the ban list and take everything into consideration. You know, go to several different perspectives. Don't just like get a couple and be like, all right, this is good enough, and just call it there, you know. But all in all, like, yeah, if they ban stuff, I agree with the needle fiber going down, or at least maybe needle fiber's like not. Yeah, needle fiber is a pretty big issue, but link cross has definitely become a big problem lately too. I don't know though. It's hard to say. I feel like without needle fiber link cross, it'd probably be fine. But at the same time, needle fiber, there's a lot of lower tier strategies that really need it to function, or at least like the way that they want to. So I would hate to say that outright banning needle fiber is the way to go, because once again, there's so many decks that actually kind of need him to help out with their strategy and just make them at least playable. But at the same time, there's so many higher tier decks that are abusing it for so many different plays that definitely make it really troublesome, and it makes it hard to tell which way to go. And of course, he just came out in Dual Overload earlier this year, so it's not likely that he'll get hit this soon. I mean, yeah, they're probably still selling some Dual Overload, but I don't think it's hitting as hard as it was at release right now. Well, obviously it's not, but I don't think it's really hitting that good in general right now. So I don't know. It could go either way, I think. But if you're gonna go after needle fiber, I also think it's right to go after the Auroradon a little bit, because Auroradon has definitely caused a lot of problems for this format as well, in combination with the needle fiber. Honestly, if we don't really have the Borreload Savage Herald of the Arclight combo, I think we'd be a lot better off, because that's just 2 free Omni Negates that any deck can throw in with just the Jet Synchron normal summon. Like, as long as they've got their normal summon open, you can just throw in the Jet Synchron with 3 tuning, and like, you have that full combo that allows you to get two free Omni Negates, one of which can actually search you another negate that can protect your cards. Like, wrapping my brain around this gets really hard some days, because there is so much going on, and this game just is insane some days. It really goes a little bit of everywhere. And I do love it for the fact that there is so much going on that it, you know, allows players to be more creative and come up with all these different plays and fun strategies. But when you're also looking at people that are just using the degenerate strategies and everyone's playing the same thing just because they want to win and not because they want to play the game and, you know, have fun, I really don't know. It's I don't even. I say I don't know a lot this podcast, because at this point I really don't know. This game is in such an awkward state like, I remember leaving in about that 2012, 2013 area when pendulums were just coming out. I mean, I'll probably have my time frame wrong on that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Just, I left about when the pendulum era started, and I'm glad I didn't get to see that format play out, because, man, I miss the days of just playing Element of Heroes and going into stuff like Great Tornado and being able to attack over my opponent's monsters because I cut them in half, and I miss those days, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the combos and stuff. I love being able to play stuff like Prankins and just combo off and build all this insane stuff. But at the same time, some days it just gets really draining, and it gets really hard to keep up with, because when you're trying to create new decks, you have to keep that format in mind, and you have to realize, like, okay, I need to build this for this style of gameplay, because if I can't do that and I can't keep up with anything, then what am I even making this deck for? Like, it's not going to do anything, because everyone else is playing all this other stuff, and if it can't keep up with that, then, well, I really have no point being here and making this deck. Obviously, stuff like my Exodia profile and my Danger Exodia profile is kind of an exception, because I really just did that for the fun of it, and I really just love it. And I don't know. It's one of those things, man. I don't know what else to tell you guys. This game has such an awkward format right now, and I've gone over this before, obviously, with all the Numerons being able to go into the S0 to turn skip, or going second to OTK, being comboed with Eldritch, Dogmatica, Shadal, all this stuff to really just shut everyone else out from playing the game. It's time that we take those doors and we just open them up. You know, we stop the lock being placed against us and just let us run free and be able to play and have more fun. I think Konami needs to start designing more cards to be interactive rather than just to be shutout cards. That would probably be like the biggest thing this game needs right now, is more cards with interaction and less with just completely shutting out plays. Because once you just shut stuff out, it becomes not very fun anymore, and it takes a lot of life out of the game. And I think that's part of why Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been having a decline, is just because the formats have been so unstable, and you can never know what's going to happen. Everything can change with the release of a single card, or with the hit of a single card on the Forbidden Limited list. You know, just like one card can affect the entire format, and I think that in itself is a telltale sign of why it's not worth it. I don't know. I really don't think I have anything else to put into this, guys. I mean, if you have any other input, feel free to let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube, or hit me up on Twitter if you got anything to say. I'm definitely open to discussion, but where I'm at, I don't think there's really much discussion left to be had. And yeah, it's a rough time for Yu-Gi-Oh!, but at the same time, it's also a fun time. It's so conflicting. It makes it hard to be a player in this game some days. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Havre Card Cast. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to let me know by leaving a like down below and commenting on it. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel as well. Like I said, I'm posting videos every week, at least a guaranteed deck profile. Then I'm also releasing other stuff like deck reviews. Then on Coalition Scrubs, I'm releasing card discussions, and Team Chaos Stream, I'm doing some replays. So be sure to go check all those out. And also, don't forget to join me on streams every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you guys so much for all of your support with the channel and the podcast so far. It has been incredible, and I love each and every single one of you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember to have fun and make your move. Peace out.
I'm a love giver.